Now, I am pretty certain that Zerg is currently a little bit overpowered on the balanced test map, and let me try and explain to you before jumping to conclusions, okay? I'm currently playing a live game right here versus Azure, and what I'm gonna try and show you is the strategy that I have been winning game after game after game with versus like very high level opponents as well, and I've actually yet to really see a Protoss absolutely decimate the strategy. Now, first things first, I don't want to make this video a balanced discussion, okay? I've made these types of videos before where I'm showing off a strategy, and all that really happens in the comments below the video is people arguing with each other and talking about what race is currently the best and what race is currently the weakest. Guys, that's not what I want to be covering here. I want to simply just be showing you a very cool strategy, and I want to be giving you my thoughts on the current setting in the game. Now, one thing to note right off the bat is that this is the very first iteration of the balanced test mod. As you may be aware, Blizzard is planning on making a whole lot of changes to the multiplayer version of the game, even without another expansion coming out. There are a couple of weaknesses in the game and a couple of weak points in the, different matchups that are currently happening in the current iteration of Legacy of the Void, and they want to be addressing those. And this is the very first map that they have come up with, and obviously none of these changes are going to be making it to the final version of the game. Okay, let me point that out just right now. The reason why this balanced test mod even exists is because so we can actually, figure out these imbalanced strategies. Now, the one thing that I've noticed that works extremely well against Protoss, at the very least in macro games, is going to be an army based around Banelings as well as Hydralisk. So what I got right here is a match that I'm playing against Azure, and we've decided to both play a macro-focused style that is a very, very standard composition, at the very least for both players, right now in the current version of Legacy of the Void. At the very least, the Protoss player is going to be doing so. So let's talk about the changes very briefly. First and foremost, for Protoss, there are some incredible changes, at the very least, to their Stargate units. In particular, the Tempest, as well as the Carrier, have gotten a whole lot of buffs and changes that make the units far more interesting and far more unique. And I really, really like them, in particular, once you get to that point. However, as far as the early to mid-game changes go for Protoss, and it looks like he's opening up with some adept shenanigans, we can deal with that just fine. But as far as the early game aggression goes for Protoss, there really aren't that many additions that they really can be working with. The one thing that they primarily got going for them is a change to the way charge works. So if you research charge right now for the Zealots in the Twilight Council, you're basically gonna be not just getting the actual charge ability on the Zealots whenever they get someone in sights and they will charge at the target. They will now also be able to actually get a little bit extra movement speed. But that's honestly the only real change that has happened to the early to mid-game version of Protoss on the balanced test map. Now, in the current version of Legacy of the Void, so all of the tournaments that are being played right now, it's pretty common for Zerg players to be focusing on an army based around Roaches and Ravagers and then switch towards, for example, Hydralisk and Lurker and all that kind of shenanigans, right? That's pretty standard at its current version of the game. However, the one composition that has already become more popular, at the very least in Korea, is a Baneling Hydralisk combo. And it works really well, as you can defend all kinds of early game pressure from the Protoss with the links. You can be upgrading both of them. It transitions really nicely into late game as well, because you're going to be getting the missile upgrades as well as, a couple other things as well. And it just allows you to be rather aggressive as well. Now, the one thing to note, and I'm going to try and catch these things. There we go. The one thing to note is that both of the units, both the Baneling as well as the Hydralisk, has gotten buffed up substantially in the current version of the balanced test mod. So first and foremost, the Baneling has got 30 HP in the live version of the game, but in this version of the match, it actually has 40 HP. So that's an increase of 25% extra sustain. Now, that may not sound like a lot, but it actually takes Protoss substantially longer to really get a proper engagement off. And in my experience so far, it really comes into play very, very, very quickly. On top of that, the Hydralisk has got one extra base range, but more importantly, it's got extra movement speed on creep as well. Which once again may not sound very substantial, but it really does make the push significantly more powerful. Now, what I'm gonna do is get my +1/+1 upgrades going, very, very standard. I'm gonna be getting 4 gases here a little bit sooner than I normally would, and I do plan on getting the 6th and 5th gas guys here ASAP as well, just so I can use those to get my real economy started up as well. So Lair is coming in. I'm checking out what kind of strategy he's going for. I did get the Roach Warren for safety, and I'll have to make a couple of roaches here just in case. But so far, this is seeming to be a pretty standard game, right? Just gotta keep tabs on when he's taking that third base. I'm assuming he's gonna be taking that very, very shortly. And I'm gonna be starting up my +1/+1 upgrades. I'm also gonna be getting my Baneling Nest right now. Now, by no means is this build optimized just yet, and there's definitely still a whole lot of things that I need to do. You may actually not be pushing at all and just simply go for a third base expansion here, which is a fair enough decision. But what I'm gonna do is get my Hydralisk Den next. Now, like I said, okay, by no means is this build optimized just yet, and it can definitely be more powerful. But what my idea is that I'm gonna be going for the Hydra speed, I'm gonna be going for the Baneling speed, I'm gonna be going for the +1/+1 upgrades on both the Banelings as well as the Hydralisk. So actually, like, I'm getting +1 upgrades to the attack of both the Banelings and the Hydralisk. I'm not getting the armor upgrade, which once again is very, very standard right now as well. Alright, so it looks like I'm done droning. I'm gonna be getting my Muscular Augments upgrade. I'm gonna be getting my upgrade right here to the Banelings as well to get some Baneling speed. And as you may have noticed, the Protoss really is playing relatively passive as well. Very, very standard. This is something you will see on the ladder in like 80% of the games. The only ones like that I've been using, or that I've been losing so far, so the only matches that I've really been losing, are the ones where my opponent is going for cheese and I get called with my pants down. But other than that, I've really not been losing all too many matches. So far, very, very standard of what is currently normal in a Legacy of the Void. Now, what I'm doing is trying to knock down these rocks, as I want to be engaging here in a little bit. So if I weaken up these rocks, it will make it a bit easier for us. And I'm just simply trying to make as many Hydralisks here as possible. Now, keep in mind, I'm going to be pushing right when this upgrade finishes up on the Baneling Nest. I got my fourth base already good to go as well. Actually, that one's, you know, finishing up in just a second. Still making Hydralisk here. But very shortly, yeah, right about right now, I'm going to stop doing that. I'm just simply going to start reinforcing with mainly Zerglings right now. Now, the funny thing is that I wouldn't be calling this imbalanced or overpowered if it wasn't for the fact that I am absolutely rolling over my opponents every single match. It's not like it's just slightly too strong. It seems to be that there is no real way Protoss can absolutely deal with this, okay? So once again, I'm reinforcing here with as many Banes, as many Hydras as I can as well. And I'm also getting a lot of Zerglings here. I'm morphing the Roaches that I do have into Ravagers. So my opponent is going to be sitting back. My Baneling speed is done. +1/+1 is done. Muscular Augments is done. And here we go. We're going to start pushing. Now, notice, my opponent, because he knows that I'm going for this strategy, right? I've discussed what actually is going to be happening here. He is forced to go for Hydralisk, because otherwise the Banelings will just absolutely murder everything. And he's got a pretty sizable army. He's got a huge economy. He established all of the eco that he could possibly be getting here. And I'm just simply making a lot of stuff, right? He hasn't really missed a beat here. He hasn't really been missing a beat. But notice, I can deal aggression to his third base. I can clean up his army. But more importantly, I can get my fourth base here as well. So what I can do is just simply start droning up again. I can start getting my drones for my fourth base. I can decide to transition towards, for example, Hive units. And while this may not look like it's, you know, very, very heavily in my advantage here already, I've got double the amount of bases that my opponent has right now, and I'm dealing with his army, and I actually have an upgrade advantage. All of this will easily carry me towards the later stages of the game, and I should be able to actually even close out the game here, which is honestly has been the case in pretty much every single game that I have played so far. And indeed, he's going to be forced to GG out of the match. Alright, so this could mean one of two things. First and foremost, and that is actually the side that I am leaning towards the most right now, Zerg might actually be too powerful. And this may just be the case, and it may just be something that will have to be tuned down. And if that is the case, I'm sure Blizzard will realize it and adjust accordingly. Or it could mean the second thing, and that would mean that Protoss will have to adjust. One thing that I've really started noticing, in particular in this version of the balanced test mode, is that Protoss needs to somehow, some way, slow down the Zerg's economy. And it is very similar, I guess, to how Zerg versus Terran works, where the Terran has to go for some sort of harassment, because if they let the Zerg just simply sit back and macro up, their economy is going to be too big, and they're not going to really be able to do a whole lot against it, as Zerg will just simply start overrunning them. But the one thing that I've noticed is that there really isn't a whole lot Protoss can do. I mean, the one thing it comes down to is that Protoss needs to catch you off guard. If you are having units out in time, so notice I had a handful of Zerglings here, about 8 Zerglings is enough to deal with 2 Adepts. I'm going for the blind Spore Crawlers at the 4-minute mark, I'm going for the safety Roach Warren, and I'm just basically playing this utterly safe by not taking any aggression, not taking any risks. I am not going to be taking any economy losses, you know? I'm not going to be taking any economy losses just because I'm playing utterly safe. And while versus Terran, the Protoss or the Terran players can still sort of match your economy and get the upgrades going, Protoss just does not seem to be able to properly deal with that whatsoever. And you may notice here, Protoss wasn't really missing all too many beats either. Sure, he wasn't playing it perfectly, and I understand that that is going to be the case, but I've played against several Grandmaster level Protosses, and this strategy just works every single time. In particular, because you have such an easy way of transitioning towards Hive, getting your +2/+2 upgrades as well, and continuing the aggression while, for example, going for Lurkers or, for example, for going for Brute Lords or Ultralisk. And honestly, this is one of the closer games that I've had. In many scenarios, I just absolutely walk over the army that the Protoss has, and it just makes the matchup look utterly in favor of Zerg. Anyhow, let me know your thoughts down below the like button in the comment section of this video. Once again, I don't want to be starting a balanced discussion. I just want to be sharing you a cool build order. So if you're gonna be arguing with each other, please do it in a nice way. Please be nice to each other. It's worth being nice, okay? It's definitely one thing to live by. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you haven't already, hit that like button. And if you want to see more, hit that subscribe button as well so you get a notification as soon as I upload more. And other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile. And I'll see you in the next one.